want to give you 5 reasons why we tend to resist change. One of the reasons why we tend to resist change is because we prefer the old over the new. The old, that's just our preference. We prefer older music. We prefer older movies. We prefer older systems. We prefer older, former co-workers over the new people that's there. We just prefer the old. The second reason is because we tend to be attached to the old, right? So sometimes it's not an issue of preference. We're just attached to it. We have memories attached to the old. We have an emotional connection to the old. And so sometimes we're so attached to the old, we can't embrace or appreciate the new. A third one is, and this is something that we often don't consider, is sometimes the old is better than the new. Sometimes we have to replace the old with something new, and the something new may not be as robust. It may not be the same quality. It may not have the same behavior or attitude of the old, but they had to be replaced. And as a matter of fact, in the chat section right now, just raise your hand if you've ever experienced that, where you have something new, but when you compare it to the old, like, it doesn't have the same durability, it doesn't last as long, but it needed to be replaced. And so sometimes that can be difficult. It can be difficult when the old is just better quality, was just a better situation compared to the new. And as many of us know, that wine tastes better with time. And it's so ironic that Jesus says the old is good enough, because sometimes people taste, the older wine, and it's like, well, this is good enough for me. Like, why do I need new wine when I have aged wine? So sometimes that's a challenge. Another reason is because we learn to survive with the old. What I mean by this is that we tend to build our life around the dysfunction of the old, and that just becomes a way of life. And so as a matter of fact, after the Israelites had laid the foundation, some of you have remembered, if you were tuned in last week, that the foundation was laid, and the rebuilding of the temple was on pause for 16 years. Ironically, the Israelites had built an altar on top of the foundation in order to make sacrifices. So for 16 years, it's not that they weren't making sacrifices. They were making sacrifices, but without the temple. So they found a way to function. And this is what tends to happen. We sort of build our life around the dysfunction. And I don't know if you ever had a situation like that, where maybe you've had a guest that came over and they try to open one of your doors, and they're like, how do I get this thing open? Like, is it locked? Do I need to go? And you come along and say, no, here's what you got to do. You just got to tap it twice like this, and then you kind of have to kind of turn it and then lift it, and bam. Right? So that's the strategy. That's how we've been living for the past 10 years. Bam, bam, bam. Pull it open. And the question is, why don't we just get the door fixed? I don't know. It's like, right? And that's happened in so many areas of our lives. Like, we just kind of just learn to just live with the dysfunction of the old. And then here's the last one. The reason why many of us resist change is because change requires change. Change requires change. And sometimes we don't have an issue with the change itself. We would embrace the change. However, the change requires that I change. The change requires that I change my habits, that I change my disciplines, that I have to change the way I dress, I have to change the way I function, I have to change the sacrifices that I made. And so I don't want to make the change because change requires change. And I want you to take a look at this, right? And let me tell you why this is so critical. I'm going to draw this diagram. And so right here, I'm going to write the words where we are, right? So right here, this is where we are. This is where we are emotionally. This is where we are financially. This is where we are in our business. This is where we are in our health. Like, this is just where we are. And right here, I'm going to write, this is where we need to be, right? So this is where we are right now, and this is the place that we need to get to, right? And so many of us, we see where we need to be, but we don't want to make changes, so we stay where we are. Let me get my other markers. I'm going to kind of do, kind of change up the color. And so in order for us to move from where we are to where we need to be, we need to kind of climb up this hill, and I'll call it the hill of change. That if we're going to get from here to there, we have to make changes. So what needs to happen is we have to create a sense of urgency here, so that we realize that, you know what, if I'm going to get to here, I can't stay here. And so maybe we need to sit down and maybe to think of 5 reasons why I can't stay in this same place financially. 5 reasons of why I can't stay in this same place socially. 5 reasons why I can't stay here another year. We have to create a sense of urgency so that we can see to stay here is not acceptable. I can't allow 2023 to be 2023. Not again. And so in order to get from here to there, we have to climb the hill of change. To get from here to there, from where I am to where I need to be, I need to climb the hill of change. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give 4 practical changes that we can apply to our area of venture, whatever that is, whether you're a nail technician, whether you run your own business, your own firm, whether you have something that you're doing on the side, whether you're a social media influencer, maybe you're a real estate agent, whatever you're doing, maybe there's an area that you're leading, and maybe there are 1 or 2 of these that can apply to where you are. So these are just kind of just general things for us to consider, right? So 4 changes that we may need to make for 2022. Y'all with me? Here's the first change. The first change that we may need to make is moving from crisis to strategy. Is moving from crisis to strategy. What I mean by this is moving from being in a crisis mindset or crisis mode to now operating more strategically. And so many of us know that at the beginning of this pandemic, we were thrown into a crisis, right? Remember, everything was shut down. We had to stay at home. The only time that you left your house is if you went to the grocery store to come back. And even when you were going to the grocery store, you had to pray, number 1, that it's not a crazy line. And then after staying in that line, then you had to pray that they actually had the stuff that you were looking for once you got inside. I mean, we our lives was just completely disrupted. We were in a crisis mode. And you got to understand that anytime that we are in crisis mode, we just are seeking to survive. So we're just in survival mode. Like, look, we're just going to do what we can. We're just going to just, do this whenever we get time. We're going to just kind of we can't create a schedule. Like, look, we're in crisis. We're just trying to get through this. We're all in this together, right? And so now we're almost 2 years in, especially this year. We need to start thinking more strategically now. We need to start thinking more strategically about what we do with our time. We need to start thinking more strategically about the decisions that we make. We need to start thinking more strategically just overall. How do I move from simply being in crisis mode to now thinking more strategically? Let me give you an example of this.
Hey everybody, some of y'all remember this. Remember early on in the pandemic when you couldn't find any disinfectant wipes? Like you would go on the shelves and it was completely empty. I know for me, I used to stick my head in this store. Every once in a blue moon, a few might pop up, but it'll just be like, you can only get like one per family or one per person. It didn't matter what brand it was, whether it was Clorox, Lysol, off-brand, it didn't matter. Disinfectant wipes were disinfectant wipes. So this is the thing. Check this out. Look at this. This whole shelf is filled with disinfectant wipes. Look, they have the small ones, they have the large ones, and then they have the 3-pack. And and the 4-pack. Didn't even know they had the 4-pack. And not only that, but they have different scents. So you have the fresh scent, then you have crisp lemon, and that's not it. Look at this. They have Pacific Breeze and coconut, and Tahitian grapefruit splash. You know what that means? Now I have options. Whereas before I just had to just buy whatever they had, now I can make a more strategic decision, right? So what size do I want? What scent do I want? What flavor do I want? Remember that meme about drinking Clorox? Here you go. Coconut or Tahitian Breeze, right? I can get the 3-pack, the 4-pack, depending on what the budget is, because now I can make more strategic decisions. That's how it is in our life. Now we can be more strategic about decisions we have to make. And they still have the off-brand if you want that. You know what I'm saying? If you want a spa room sanitizing alcohol wipes versus Clorox, Lysol, help yourself. And look at this, Dawn. I thought they only made dishwashing liquid. They're making disinfectant wipes. And the 7th generation, not the 1st, not the 2nd, not the 4th, not the 6th, but the 7th generation. And that's all I'm saying. Things are still challenging, but things have normalized now where we can make some more strategic decisions about what we do with our time, with our efforts, with our resources, so we don't have to stay in crisis mode if God has opened up the doors and abilities to make more strategic decisions.
All right. So we got to move from crisis to strategy in 2022. Here's the second one. We have to move from casual to serious. From casual to serious. Here's what I mean by this. That there are many of us that we are leading our own venture or initiative. So maybe you may be a social media strategist. Maybe you may have online seminars. Maybe you may do freelance work. Maybe you may be a photographer. You may be a musician. And maybe you have a casual approach when it comes to your business or your venture. And it's not only in business and entrepreneurship. It can also be our relationship with God, our relationship with our family, anything that we should be taken more seriously. Sometimes we can approach the very thing that we must be taking seriously, and we have a hobby mindset of it, right? So when you have a hobby mindset of it, you sort of take it lightly. This is something I do on the side. This is something that I do for fun. And that's okay for hobbies. The problem is, this isn't supposed to be a hobby. This is supposed to be a business, right? And this is why good hobbies make bad business, right? So it's great if it's just a hobby, but when it's something that I'm actually paying for, when I actually have a contract with you and you're treating this thing like it's something you kind of do whenever you can, we need to make a switch from being casual to being serious about what we should be serious about. So for many of us, this may mean, developing contracts, getting a system in place, building a website, having an actual social media presence. I'm talking about when you have a social media account that has more than one picture from 2019. Like that, we have to put in the effort to be serious about this, because if you're saying that this is what you're doing to provide for your family, if you're saying that you're building this so you can leave a legacy for your children and your children's children, well, you got to get more serious about it. And many of us know exactly what I'm talking about. It's one thing if this is a hobby, but it's not. It's a business. And let me just tell you something as well. Many people will treat our business the way that we treat it. So if we treat it like a hobby, then your clients are going to treat it like a hobby too. So they're going to just show up whenever, pay you whatever. Like, look, just give me whatever. No. Do you have a price list? Like, do you have a menu? Is it on your website how much you charge, like per hour? Like, can I actually go on your website and get an appointment? Or can I just drop in whenever? So now you're frustrated because people not showing up because you said just come whenever. Now you're frustrated. Well, you ain't come. You say you won't come. No, I say I may come. No, so now look, you just gotta say, look, you just gotta just be serious, set appointments, and this is something also that you have to avoid in 2022. That you have to avoid allowing your venture to be controlled by your sense of self-worth. So sometimes we have a low self-esteem, and so we have a low self-esteem to whatever we do. So we just say, oh, that's just a little something. That's just my little thing on the side. No, that's not a little something on your side. This is what you're gifted to do. This is your business. This is your area of anointing. And you have to take it seriously. God has called you to be a steward of it, right? So many of us got to move from having a casual approach to having a serious approach.
Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to tell someone about this video. Thank you so much for watching.